Babylon, 600 years before Christ. A tyrannical king ruled ruthlessly until one day he encountered a divine presence that would challenge his authority. Many people are unaware that Jesus is present in the Old Testament. This pivotal event is recorded in the book of Daniel, taking place in Babylon, a region ruled by King Nebuchadnezzar. Known for his pride and cruelty, Nebuchadnezzar delighted in torturing his victims, ruling the ancient world as an absolute dictator. After subduing Syria, he turned his ambitions toward Egypt, primary adversary. Judah, standing in his way, had to be eliminated for him to fulfill his dream of creating a vast empire. Nebuchadnezzar ordered a group of young Jews to be trained in his court as men of knowledge and wisdom. Among them were Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, who were given the Babylonian names Belteshazzar, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. The king then commanded the creation of a colossal golden statue, likely intended to consolidate his power by gathering all levels of his court for a grand ceremony. The rulers were summoned to the statue's dedication and were ordered to bow in worship. Anyone who disobeyed this command faced death in a blazing furnace. All obeyed out of fear of Nebuchadnezzar, who sought to establish himself not only as Babylon's political leader, but also as its supreme religious authority. However, 3 men in the room, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, refused to bow, despite the immense social pressure. Certain Chaldeans, motivated by jealousy, reported this defiance to Nebuchadnezzar. These young Hebrews, despite their captivity, had risen to positions of power, which only fueled the jealousy of their accusers. Their refusal to worship any god other than the true God of Israel gave their adversaries the perfect opportunity to eliminate them. When Nebuchadnezzar learned of their disobedience, he was enraged. Surprisingly, he gave them a chance to defend themselves, perhaps a sign of his respect for them. Yet the king was clear, he would accept only total submission. They had 2 choices: worship the massive golden idol or perish in the fire. Despite Nebuchadnezzar's previous praise of the Hebrew God, he challenged them, saying, "Who is the God who can deliver you from my power?" Daniel 3:13-14. The response of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego was remarkable. They told the king, "O Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you in this matter. If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God we serve is able to save us from it, and he will rescue us from your hand, O king. But even if he does not, we want you to know, O king, that we will not serve your gods or worship the image of gold you have set up." Daniel 3:16-18. Their message was clear. They would rather die than disobey God. Even if God chose to let them burn, they would still serve the living God instead of a dead idol. Filled with fury, Nebuchadnezzar ordered the furnace to be heated 7 times hotter than usual, and commanded his strongest soldiers to bind Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and throw them into the flames. Yet as they were cast into the furnace, Nebuchadnezzar was astonished to see not 3, but 4 men walking unharmed in the midst of the fire. "The 4th," he said, "is like a son of the gods." Nebuchadnezzar recognized that this was no ordinary man, but the pre-incarnate Christ. The presence of this divine figure in the furnace was undeniable. While Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego may or may not have been aware of the Son of God walking with them, the king certainly was. The only things burned in the fire were the ropes that had bound them. God demonstrated his power to even the most hardened hearts, including Nebuchadnezzar, who had thought himself the most powerful being in the world. But here, he met one far more powerful. Nebuchadnezzar approached the mouth of the furnace and called out, "Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come out." And they did, completely unharmed. Not a hair on their heads was singed, nor was their clothing damaged, and they did not even smell of fire. Nebuchadnezzar was so moved by this divine rescue that he decreed that anyone who spoke against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego would be punished severely, for there is no other God who can save in this way. Daniel 3:28. This story of faith, courage, and divine deliverance is a profound example of steadfastness in the face of persecution. It teaches us that, like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, we must trust God even when it means facing trials. Their faith revealed 3 key truths: their unwavering belief in the God of the Bible, their confidence in his ability to deliver them, and their acknowledgement of his sovereignty over even the most powerful earthly king. Their actions led to the revelation of God's supreme power to unbelievers, showing that God is capable of delivering us from our own troubles. As Christians, we know that God can deliver us from trials, but we also know that he doesn't always do so. According to Romans 5, God may allow hardships to build our character and strengthen our faith. Like Job, who said, "Though he slay me, yet will I trust in him." We are called to trust God, even when we don't understand why we're suffering. God may not guarantee that we will never suffer or die, but he promises to always be with us. In times of adversity, we must adopt the attitude of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Unwavering faith in God, no matter the cost. The story of these three men is not just an inspiration. It's a powerful reminder that God's presence is with us even in our most challenging moments. When we face persecution or pain, we can find hope in the knowledge that this life is not the end. There is life after death, a guarantee to all who love and obey him. Knowing that we will spend eternity with God empowers us to rise above the pain and suffering we experience in this life. For centuries, the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego has captivated both children and adults. Their actions in defying Nebuchadnezzar represent a form of civil disobedience, a deliberate stand against a governmental decree that violated God's standards. The king was never the same after witnessing their miraculous deliverance. He abandoned the gods he once worshipped in favor of the God of those he had previously persecuted, insisting that no one should worship any god but the Almighty. Godly leaders should seek glimpses of God's power and glory, for it is through these moments that we are inspired to serve the one true God who truly exists. Nebuchadnezzar responded to this revelation by declaring, "Blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who has sent his angel and rescued his servants who trusted in him." Daniel 3, verse 28-30, Amplified Bible. Jesus, though not named as such, is present in the Old Testament as evidenced by various passages that point to his coming. For instance, in John 5:46, Jesus affirmed that the Old Testament speaks of him. "If you believed Moses, you would believe me, for he wrote about me." These references, along with over 300 prophecies about his life, ministry, and death, underscore that the entire Bible points to Jesus as the promised Messiah and the hope of forgiveness and eternal life. The story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego is ultimately a type of Christ, faithful to God even unto death, yet raised to life by the power of God. This story encourages us to remain faithful to God, knowing that he is always with us, no matter the circumstance. One additional lesson we can draw from the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego is the importance of unwavering integrity. These three men stood firm in their convictions and refused to compromise their beliefs, even under the threat of death. Their example teaches us that true integrity means holding fast to our principles, no matter the pressure or the consequence. In a world where values can often be compromised for convenience or safety, their courage reminds us to stay true to what we believe in, trusting that doing the right thing will ultimately bring us closer to God and his protection. Another lesson we can learn from the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego is the power of faith in the face of overwhelming adversity. Their unwavering trust in God, even when confronted with the terrifying prospect of being thrown into a blazing furnace, demonstrates that faith is not about believing only when things are easy, but about holding on to that belief even when the outcome seems bleak. These men knew that God was capable of delivering them from the furnace, yet their faith went beyond seeking a miraculous escape. They were prepared to accept whatever God had in store for them, even if it meant death. This kind of faith is not transactional. It's a deep-seated trust in God's goodness and sovereignty, regardless of the circumstance. Their story also illustrates that faith can inspire others. King Nebuchadnezzar, a powerful ruler who initially demanded that everyone worship his golden statue, was so moved by the faith of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego that he publicly acknowledged the power of their God. He witnessed firsthand that no earthly power, not even his own, stand against the true God. This moment of recognition didn't just save the three men. It also led to a decree that protected the worship of their God throughout the kingdom. In our own lives, we may not face the literal fires of persecution, but we will encounter situations where our faith is tested. The story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego encourages us to maintain our trust in God, knowing that our faith can not only carry us through difficult times, but also serve as a powerful testimony to others.